Fallout 76 is Bethesda's latest non-mainline Fallout game, or as Todd Howard keeps insisting, with the same joke over and over.
Fallout 76 is the 76th version of Fallout.
In this video, I'm going to be talking about Fallout 76 and looking at things like what the actual game is like, some of the bugs and issues with the game, and what I hope the future of the game will look like. Despite the fact I will be covering bugs and issues with the game, the overall tone will be positive because I do like this game, so please keep that in mind. And I hope you enjoy the video. So, ever since it was first announced, I'm talking the very first teaser trailer, I was just as excited for it as I was for any of the previous games. However, very quickly, rumours started, as they always do, but these rumours were suggesting that the game was going to be multiplayer, very similar to Rust, actually, which started to make me a bit worried because while it's a good game in its own rights, Rust and similar multiplayer survival games like it are just not the kind of games that I enjoy, as you can see. What I don't enjoy specifically is the aspect of one life in multiplayer. You know what I mean? You spawn in, you run around for a few hours, collecting food, guns, clothes, whatever else you need, and then inevitably you die, and then you have to start over again with nothing. For single player games such as Don't Starve, Faster Than Light, or even Subnautica, which are some of my favourite games, I don't mind this because the world will reset with you. But for multiplayer games, the rest of the players, the rest of the world continues, and they already have the better bases, the equipment, the resources, most likely my stuff as well. And I was worried that Fallout 76 was going to be like this too. So I anxiously awaited the full E3 stage talk where they promised to explain everything, and thankfully they did. So Todd Howard comes out on stage, he does his intro speech, they show the Skyrim Very Special Edition joke trailer, and then finally he starts talking about Fallout 6. And the initial concept he gives, I love. It's about one of the first vaults to open, how the sheltered survivors from within are going to survive, thrive, and still almost fresh wasteland. Players will work alongside of the vault dwellers to rebuild West Virginia, Simple enough. The map is huge, 4 times the size of Fallout 4. They've added tons of new creatures such as Wendigos, Radtoads, even the honey monster, honey beasts. They've also updated the engine to make details better so things like distant weather systems are visible. And then he finally addressed the elephant in the room. The rumours were correct. All the other vault dwellers, and in fact all NPCs in the game, were going to be real people.
Because yes, Fallout 76 is entirely online.
And I'll be honest, my reaction was the exact same as this guy's. I would admit, part of me has always wanted to form a multiplayer for Fallout, but I've always sort of envisioned it as a co-op. 4 people at most, pretty much how Dead Island worked, where you can drop in and out. Not a full multiplayer game like they were proposing. Eventually the survival aspects and PvP was talked about, and honestly these are actually what made me be at rest and be fully on board with the game. The way they handled them both to me were perfect. When you die, you drop all your junk, a few caps, but that's it. You don't lose your guns, your progress, you don't lose your character. The PvP was described as slap damage, which, I'll be honest, was a bit weird, but did make sense after he explained it. Basically, you do, as the instigator, you'll do minimal damage, which basically is slap. But then if the other person shoots you back, then you'll both start doing full damage. Although since then, they've now changed this so you don't do any slap damage at all until both of you attack. So, but like I say, that's all I needed to hear. I was actually finally hyped. So, over the past 9 or so months since the launch of the game, I've played a little over 230 hours now, and my overall consensus is that it's a really good game, and I actually like it, but definitely not without its problems. So it's a different Wasteland than the other Fallout games. This time it's got distinct biomes, for lack of a better word. The Stone Forest area, there's a desolate nuked region, there's the scary ass forest with creatures actually hiding up in the bloody trees waiting to scare the crap out of me. Then there's the smoke covered mine region, and finally a cranberry forest, or whatever the hell it's meant to be. There is a story, there are quests to do. One of them is pretty much just going to places to collect holotapes left by the Overseer, who, by the way, is apparently Sonic the Bloody Hedgehog, since she's managed to go through the whole entire wasteland top to bottom with only a 1 day head start of us. But the main focus of the game is definitely supposed to be exploring and surviving in the wasteland. The main overarching plot of the game, I think, is really good, and there's actually quite a decent excuse as to why there's no NPCs. Basically, without spoiling a whole lot, there was a virus of sorts that's turned the infected people into these weird hive-minded ghoul-type creatures called the Scorched. And after years of survivors holding them off, when you emerge out the vault, you found that the Scorch have essentially won and managed to kill everyone. Every so often, while travelling the wasteland, you do meet a couple of non-human NPCs here and there, but you can't really interact with them beyond press button to talk or trading with them. Rose, the robotic leader of the Raiders, and Graham, the super mutant merchant, are definitely two of my favourites. Rose will give you quests. Graham is a trader, but he did have some quests during an event called Meat Week, which was kind of fun. Some of the missions from NPCs were just sort of go to place, find item, come back. Pretty standard fetch missions. But some of the quests are actually really fun, kind of unique, especially the Raider quest from Rose, which one of them had me making explosive meat lures. One of them was even to try and tame a bloody Deathclaw. By far my favourite quest was one where you have to register with the DMV just because of the absurdity and the realism were just top notch. Having to wait for your number to call only to find you have the wrong form and then having to wait again is just... I really should have seen it coming, to be honest. So, most of my time playing this game, I spend exploring, selling random crap to vendors, or working on my camp, which I'm actually really proud of, and I've spent way too much time on it. The building aspects are so much better than Fallout 4, with the ability you can now set a camp up anywhere. Fun fact, the place where I had my first camp is now on the trail where you run one of the gauntlets for the Possum Scouts. My favourite part of the game is definitely random encounters, both normal and Nuka-Shine induced. For those of you who don't know, Nuka-Shine is an alcoholic drink that was added with the Wild Appalachia update, and has a side effect of blackouts. It will just essentially send your character to a random location on the map. One of them is the friggin' Skyrim intro, by the way. My personal favourite random encounter is there's an insult bot who'll just sort of rock up out of nowhere, deliver a sick burn, and then just walk off as if he didn't just ruin your life.
Target acquired. They say that true beauty is on the inside, but all you have on the inside is excessive radiation poisoning. Boom. Roasted. Knock knock. Who's there? An organic being with a finite lifespan. Boom. Roasted. I considered attacking you on sight, but I don't think I could hurt you more than life already has. Later, chump.
A lot of the other random encounters are sort of static objects or dead bodies with enemies nearby, or random NPCs, like I just said, the insult bot. There's a couple of robots talking bollocks to each other, and even a Mothman that will just watch you from a distance. Real talk, by the way, the Mothman freaks me the fuck out. Just everything about it makes my skin crawl. Oh, and of course there's the mannequins that are just randomly dotted around. There's been a few new additions and quality of life enhancements since Fallout 4, such as the addition of mutations, which provide a new risk or reward depending on your view of radiation. Mutations all have some benefits and at least one negative. For instance, I've got one called Bird Bones, which will slow my full speed, takes less damage, even boost my agility, but then it drops my strength by 4. Thankfully, there are perks related to mutations, one of which will negate the bad effects by up to 75%. Character customization has been improved a lot. For instance, you can now keep all your armor on when you wear a costume. Head armor still isn't a thing, apart from power armor helmets, but some pieces actually have a function now. For instance, if you have a gas mask on, it will protect you from airborne diseases in certain parts of the map. Over the course of the game's life so far, Bethesda has tried the hardest to improve it with new features, a whole new game mode, Nuclear Winter, and a lot of bug fixes, which I'll get onto in a minute. They decided to split the story mode into two, Adventure and Survival, which personally I think was an excellent move on their part. Adventure mode got rid of the PvP slap damage, like I mentioned earlier, which I think makes it a better experience when you meet other players. While survival mode gives full PvP straight up, no bullshit, just lets you attack anyone you want. However, it hides everyone on the map, so there's a really dumb scoreboard though that shows the top 3 people for some reason. It doesn't even take skill to get to the top. The few times that I actually have tried survival, I've gotten to number 2 while I was just standing at my base cooking. The other mode they've added, named Nuclear Winter, was completely unexpected and not initially received well at all, since it was yet another Battle Royale mode. Now when they finally talked about what the mode was, I will admit that I too was just disappointed, because we all knew it was going to be a PvP mode, and because of that I was just really hoping it was going to be deathmatch or something, because going back to what I said about survival games, I don't enjoy having to start a game with nothing just because I died. And hoping you find a weapon before others do, before ultimately dying and having to do it all over again, it's just the same thing. I do suppose that with Battle Royales that at least everyone starts on an equal playing field. We all start at the same time, all with nothing. But it's the same premise, and to me it just gets really boring. I will admit the mode does actually fit in very well with the game thematically, because a battle to the death to determine who should be Overseer is very Vault-Tec and would be something that they definitely do as an experiment. And I will also admit that having finally played the mode, it is actually pretty fun. It does play quite well. They disabled VATS, so you actually have to aim at other players. Luckily they improved the gunplay a little bit beforehand. They made it faster to swap in and out of a scope view, and they also made it so you can finally interrupt a reloading just by switching weapons. Although I'm not entirely sure why they didn't just include that with the game anyway. Despite it working pretty well, being pretty fun, and actually having quite good reviews from people who played it, at the time I'm doing this review, the mode's pretty much dead. On PlayStation, for my experience, it can take like anything up to 10 minutes to find a game, and then it's probably only going to be half full as well. It probably depends on the platform. I'd imagine there's more on PC, because generally they have more players. Bethesda do seem to actively listen to the community, especially on Reddit and their own forums. They will actually respond every so often. They genuinely seem intent on making this game as good as they can, seemingly trying to do what the Elder Scrolls Online and No Man's Sky both did, though I really wish they wouldn't have to. With that being said, I do need to move on now to... So, like I said at the start of the video, I am a fan of both Fallout and Bethesda games in general. but I'm not blind or ignorant to the problems that the game has had and continues to have to this day. I do believe the game gets so much more crap than it deserves, but at the same time, a lot of it can be justified. The big overarching issue is that they're still using the same creation engine that they always have. True, it's been updated over the years, and usually I really hate the rhetoric of they use the same engine, but there are bugs in this game that were present in Fallout 4 and apparently in Fallout 3 as well. Such as getting stuck in terminals, flickering caused by wrong textures loading in, and even switching cameras just causing reloading issues, which I've experienced a lot. Don't forget, of course, the terrifying power armor bug that does this to your character. I just pray that they aren't using this engine for Starfield or The Elder Scrolls 6. I really hope they've changed engines. There were some weird customization things that they just left out at launch as well. PC players didn't have the ability to adjust their POV, they didn't even have widescreen support, which I've since heard was actually another bug in the game engine, but that sounds a bit weird. Push to talk, which is a standard in any PC game, was also just completely left out. But this time it was actually deliberate. Bethesda doubled down on this, saying they want to encourage players to communicate. Which is all well and good, but no one wants to hear strangers breathing and eating into their microphones all the time. As console players, we couldn't turn down the very eye-straining depth of field that could make anything more than 10 feet ahead of you just blurry as hell. Thankfully, the ability to adjust all of these things have been added in the various patches that they've done for the game. Talking about the major patches, recently-ish, they caused a major shitstorm with one of the big patches, where they addressed power armor issues and also how legendary items drop. From my understanding of the legendary part, they changed the line of code that decided legendary enemies and assigned them an item to no longer assign an item to certain ones. So you'd find a legendary enemy who'd be just as strong, they'd even be named legendary, whatever they are, but then they'd have no star and thus drop no item. As for the power armor, they made adjustments and improvements to all the power armor pieces apparently, and they did a thing where if you had any pieces that were affected, I'm talking any piece, all of your power armor pieces were removed from the chassis and they were placed into your player inventory. So even if they were in your stash, they'd be on your character. So I had 4 chassis at the time and found myself about 300 weight over my limit when I logged in. Thankfully they tried to account for this, and anyone who was affected would spawn at a random train station where they could then access their stash and sort it all out, just in case you didn't have a fast travel perk, which I don't, so I am thankful about that. However, apparently there was a side effect of this patch where a minority of players literally just lost the power armor pieces. It wasn't placed into their inventory or their stash, they were just gone. The game includes a microtransaction store called the Atomic Shop. It's similar to the Creation Store from Fallout 4 and Skyrim, with the exception that you can actually earn the currency in-game via challenges. Now, the reason that I'm including it in this section is for 2 main reasons. The first reason is that the daily and weekly challenges that you can complete to earn the points are just ridiculously specific. Often there'll be challenges where they'll want you to take pictures of other players in a certain outfit in a specific area of the map, or even a specific weather condition. Sometimes challenges are even impossible, such as when Vault Raids were introduced. Console players, we still had raid-related weekly challenges, despite the fact we didn't actually get the raids until a few days after PC players. Or when they added cameras into the game, they were delayed by about a week or so, but we still had related daily and weekly challenges. The second and biggest problem, though, is to do with the type of content that they have on the store. Since release of the game, Bethesda have added 4 items to the store that are non-cosmetic.
There's a scrap kit to auto-scrap your junk, a repair kit to repair your gear without needing materials, a fridge that'll keep your food fresh for 50% longer, although I do need to point out there's a perk that actually works better than that, and there's a robot that will auto-collect random junk for you. The reason people are upset and annoyed is because we were promised only cosmetic items, which so far they've kept to until these 4 items, and now they're seemingly going back on their promise. However, I really need to point out that during my research for this, I found a lot of contradicting statements onto whether or not they actually did promise cosmetics only or not. But anyway, I don't want to get into it anymore, mainly because the store's just... I'm not the target audience, because I'm not the type of person to pay for one single cosmetic item. So I really don't feel that I should have an opinion on it.
In this section, I'm also going to include vault raids, because a lot of what I've seen and heard and even experienced a little bit myself is so far they're not good. There's a lot of lag during these missions, which obviously the whole game has a bit of lag anyway, but apparently in the raids it's so bad it can actually cause you to fail the whole thing through no fault of your own. Because some of the parts of the raid is on the timer that apparently continue to count down even if you're just waiting for a door to open. The other thing that I see get mentioned a lot is the pitiful amount of XP you get per enemy, and I do agree with this. I was getting 18 XP for killing enemies between level 60 and 75. I can actually get more than that for killing a level 5 mole rat. Bethesda did defend this by saying it's because enemies come in unlimited waves, so they want to prevent XP farming, which I understand to an extent, but 18 XP, really? Plus the main parts of the raid is on timers, so it's not like you get a whole lot of time to farm anyway. And finally and quickly, I've seen on the subreddit at least one case of someone losing all of their stuff just because they were disconnected during a vault raid, which is just absolutely obscene. So now let's get on to the big one, the one that caused so much crap with so many people: the bloody canvas bags. If you don't know about this, basically with one of the more expensive versions of the game, you got a power armor helmet, an actual life-size power armor helmet, and it came with a canvas bag to store it in. However, the bag they supplied was instead made of nylon. Apparently this was the worst thing that they could have ever done, and proceeded to create a shitstorm of monumental proportions. Personally, I couldn't care less because I just got the basic version of the game and it's just a friggin' bag. Don't get me wrong, I understand why people were upset. It was false advertising. The sheer number of people who are outraged beyond reason, I really thought was just dumb. Thankfully it's over, as they finally replaced all the bags back in June for no additional charge, and that's it, it's over. At least I hope it's over. I am genuinely very excited for the future of this game. In winter this year, they're adding actual NPCs, which I think is going to completely change the game world as we know it. They're adding new settlements, factions, weapons, hopefully some quests as well. I just hope that I don't live to regret what I'm going to say, because, fun fact, I started writing this review before Vault Raids came out, and stated how excited I was for them. The upcoming NPCs, though, that are going to be added in the Wastelanders expansion is definitely something that I am excited for. They intend to add NPCs with full dialogue, choices, factions, so much more, basically like Fallout 3, Fallout New Vegas. And it's going to be making the game what everyone wanted from a multiplayer Fallout. A normal Fallout game with multiplayer, instead of an empty game with just other players to interact with, which is what we got. I do like the way they're making it into a story though. So in the first year of playing, you find that everyone's been killed by the Scorched. Part of the game had us find a cure, and now we have one. People are finally returning to Appalachia to repopulate. There's also the fact that Rose, one of her missions was to fix her radio, and she's now broadcasting across everywhere, trying to bring raiders back in. So that makes sense that she'd have raiders come repopulate. They did admit that they were originally never going to add NPCs, and that it was the fans' reaction and our insistence that made them change their mind. But I really don't see how they'd have gotten away with that for so long, because they always plan to add DLC, and so how could NPCs not be part of that? It doesn't make sense. The plot of the base game sets it up perfectly that people would eventually come back. My biggest hope for Wastelanders is that they give Rose more missions and a bigger part. Like I said, she was one of my favourite characters, and I was genuinely disappointed to find that when you've done her part of the story, that's it. She's just pretty much, you don't need to even go near her ever again. It's crazy. I fully expected to play a part in Wastelanders, given that Raiders are confirmed to be one of the main factions. So, what do I actually think about this game? I genuinely enjoy it, and I have a blast playing it, even by myself. I may get some shit for what I'm about to say, but I think I kind of prefer this to Fallout 4, simply because my character feels like my character again. For me, 76 feels closer to 3 and New Vegas than 4 did, and I'm hoping that Wastelanders will solidify my feeling towards that, because it's all going to be about choice, which is something that I really felt was lacking in Fallout 4. The voice character of 4 is what makes me feel like this, because ultimately every conversation would always end with the same outcome. Sure, 76 has a linear main story, but the rest of the game I can play how I want. My character can be what I want them to be. I do understand the lack of NPCs in 76 is extremely off-putting to a lot of players, so while I do want more people to play the game, I do very much suggest waiting for NPCs in Wastelanders if you're looking for a more traditional Fallout experience, because from what Bethesda have shown us already and talked about so far, Wastelanders should provide this. Again, I really hope to God I don't regret saying that. Overall, I'd give 76 a 6.5 out of 10. A score I'd prefer to be higher, but I feel that is completely justified. It's got massively improved gameplay over Fallout 4, lots of new features, great overarching story, I think, but my god, does it need bug fixes and optimization as soon as possible. Hey, so just last little bit, I want to say thanks for watching. I had great fun making this video. I'm hoping to be able to do more reviews soon, although not nearly as long as this. There was just so much to talk about, and I really could have talked about it a bit more. Anyway, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.